Firstly, thank you, all of you. Secondly, a very interesting stat. I'm sure most of you are aware about it in Cannes Lion. Other than the numbers and everything, submissions coming down, is 1/3 of the entries this year was from independent agencies. And let's make some noise for that, guys. 1/3. Also, this year, the representation from the independent agencies as jury presidents was also at an all-time high. Both of these point out in one direction. Independent agencies finally are stepping out of the shadows and are claiming their own. And if I hark back to the earlier sessions that were there, the one that Mr. Bhasin was spearheading, there was one thing that came out very clearly. It's about bravery, right? And bravery is something that comes in the concept, and bravery is something that results in the work. And there is one such work that has stood out. It was very interesting, and it also tied very closely to what Binda had mentioned about tying a concept to business outcome. So let's take a look at it. Can I have the video played, please, to understand what bravery, concept, and business outcome look like and how they end up with a win?
इंडिया एक बड़ी समस्या का सामना कर रहा है, नकली दवाइयों का। आज भी 5 से 25% तक की दवाइयां इंडिया में नॉट ऑफ स्टैंडर्ड क्वालिटी रिपोर्ट होती है। फिर भी इस इशू की गंभीरता अभी भी लोगों के ध्यान से दूर है। इसलिए टाटा 1mg ने नकली दवाइयों के खिलाफ एक बड़ा कदम आगे बढ़ाया है। हमने लोगों से पूछा, आप हर चीज पर सवाल उठाते हैं, ये दूध असली है या मिलावट वाला? ये सोना 18 कैरेट है क्या? ये सब्जियां सच में ऑर्गेनिक हैं? ये स्नीकर्स असली ब्रांड के हैं ना? पर आपने कभी पूछा है कि क्या मेरी दवाइयां जेन्युइन हैं? इसीलिए टाटा 1mg ने सवाल उठाओ कैंपेन लॉन्च किया, एक ऐसी मुहिम जिसमें हमने सबसे अपनी दवाइयों की असलियत पर सवाल उठाने को कहा। टाटा 1mg अपने कस्टमर्स को अलग-अलग चैनल्स के द्वारा जागरूक कर रहा है।
ये लो तुम्हारी दवाई।
वैसे मैं एक सवाल पूछूं? ये दवाई जेन्युइन है ना?
और जागरूकता के साथ साथ हम इसे अपने QR कोड फीचर के साथ सपोर्ट भी कर रहे हैं। QR कोड फीचर के जरिए टाटा 1mg अपना कमिटमेंट दिखाता है ओनली जेन्युइन मेडिसिन्स देने का, और यूजर्स को सक्षम बनाता है कि वो अपनी दवाइयों की पूरी जर्नी ट्रैक कर सकें। बस टाटा 1mg ऐप से QR कोड स्कैन कीजिए और तुरंत जानिए आपकी दवाई कहां से आ रही है, किस टेम्परेचर पे स्टोर हुई थी, बैच डिटेल्स और एक्सपायरी डेट, डिस्पैच की पूरी जानकारी। आज हर स्ट्रिप जो हम पैक करते हैं, हर सील जो हम क्लोज करते हैं और हर QR कोड जो हम प्रिंट करते हैं, उसके साथ हम अपना वादा पूरा करते हैं। वादा आपको जेन्युइन मेडिसिन देने का, क्योंकि हेल्थ केयर में ट्रस्ट बस बोला नहीं जाता, उसे प्रूव किया जाता है। और जब हम अपना फर्ज निभा रहे हैं, हम आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं, इस वीडियो को अपने फैमिली और फ्रेंड्स के साथ शेयर करें।
Just for context, that wasn't the Cannes case study. This was, I think, done by the brand, but yeah.
Yeah, but it still won. So congratulations, Dhruv.
Thank you.
And
Thank
what
you.
is also interesting is the word that was there in that ad, which is trust.
Yeah.
Now, trust is a bedrock of the industry, right? And for the longest time, most of the customers or the clients who would come to an agency came for that single aspect, trust. The rising number of independent agencies that you're now seeing, and I'm going to ask this to you, Dhruv, is do you think it's because of the consolidation that we are seeing in the industry, or is it a structural change that is now going on?
Look, I think I have to call out the elephant in the room first, right? We never applied to Cannes before this, right? You all know this. And we never thought we really would apply to Cannes, because we in many ways didn't see the kind of work that we were doing as typically competing at platforms such as Cannes, etc., right? And we believe that this time we had truly solved a big problem, a national problem, right? And it was not just about craft. It was about really helping people actually which could impact people's lives in a really big way. This was a real problem because India is actually one of the leading manufacturers in the world of fake meds, right? And we said, look, we need to solve this. And the brand wanted to do this. They wanted to take this challenge on head on. And it was a tricky space because you're either partner with the government or you're actually potentially to a certain degree pointing a finger at the government, which then turns out to be something that we said, look, we have to then pilot this. We have to run an MVP. We have to look at the technology. We have to look at the supply chain. And we have to look at this, we have to look at this. And you can say, I've been hearing this today in the room saying that the simplest idea wins, right? It's not always true. It's not about the simplest idea, right? Because often enough, you take some of the biggest, most audacious problems, and you say, yes, simply the idea is let's solve this. That's where the idea potentially comes from. Let's solve this, right? But the execution to actually solve such a big problem at the back end, where you're looking at the national, say, potentially medicine in the country that's being consumed, and then you say, this is a very big problem, and now we need many heads to come together, and we need to then try and solve all of that. So if you're asking me about consolidation, and you're asking me about, consolidation versus also independence in some form or function, I think today clients are recognizing that they want to go into rooms where there are agile teams who don't have set ways in the way they used to work, who fundamentally can take the challenge head on, deep dive into that, and then fundamentally do it in a way that isn't carrying any kind of legacy structure in the way it was supposed to be done. Right? And I think that it's important for us to fundamentally understand that this year, I think the reason we also felt that we could was because last year, there was so much finger pointing that happened with the quality of the work and people saying, look, does this actually truly make impact? Let's question it. They came under the radar. And this year, we knew they were going to get super strict. They were going to get super, super particular about saying, we need to reward work that is actually creating and solving real problems, right? And it's not just about the idea or just about the craft. So who can actually go and solve that problem and really roll up their sleeves and get it done? So I didn't expect to win. My Schengen visa had expired. I was sitting at home. I didn't even know we were shortlisted. I got a call from a journalist. I said, what? We've been shortlisted. So, of course, it was tremendous, and we're very happy that it happened. But we didn't set out to do that. We set out to say, actually, can we solve the problem and can we actually save people from actually consuming fake meds, which is a big problem. So that's how it happened, yeah.
So Dhruv, you spoke about the fact that, you were looking with, not only with this case, but I'm sure with the other cases also, to solve a problem. And I come back to the same thing, trust and solvability, business outcome, as was mentioned earlier. Padhi and Sachin, you both have worked with storied brands in the past. That was, again, the foundation of any work that was pitched, any client conversation that was held. And now both of you all are heading an independent agency, respectively. What has shifted? Do you think this is, again, I'm repeating the same question that I asked Dhruv, is this a result of what transpired in the past year when we saw, all the agencies collapsing, all the holding companies collapsing into each other, and hence that trust also shifted along the way? Or is it, like he said, that clients are wanting to enter into a room where they feel that their issues will be heard and will be taken further by the same team that was in the room the first time? So let's start with you, Sachin, and then we'll move on to Padhi.
Okay. A lot has shifted, you're right about it, in the sense of the landscape and how big agencies are operating right now, and we all know that, right? But I think one thing that, when you look at the landscape, BMW and Mercedes many years back had this policy of going for independent agencies in the market that they operate. So they would have an agency of record, like Mercedes would have BBDO, but then if you would see in India, if you would see in Germany, if you would see in some other parts, they would actually employ an independent local agency, right? And the reason behind it was a couple of those which apply in these time as well. First is that they are faster. They don't have to follow an hierarchy of contracts that they have in terms of deliverables and whether we are supposed to do that or not. The second thing is, the idea, the turnaround time. I mean, just today I had a client call, and I think we have cracked the brief in 2 meetings. Like the first meeting was to understand what they want, and then the second meeting was to go back with a plan, a 9-point plan, and they said, out of the 9-point, 2 are the ones that we want to target, and the next week we will probably have a project, you know. So I think that hierarchy is getting, you know, it's no longer in the way of creating solutions. I've said this before, big agencies have their role and they will remain as powerhouses. But I think more and more, and it's also personal ambition, right? Most of the founders you would see have come from network agencies, have worked in the system, right? They understand how it functions, what are the challenges working in that system. And then, of course, wanting to kind of have that freedom to create what they want to create in terms of a organization, right? The culture and stuff like that. So I think that is really the big shift. And the fact that there are enough fishes in the water, so as to say, like, you know, there is enough business for independent agencies to go around if you pitch yourself the right way, if you respond to the clients in the right way. And many of us have developed personal relationship with clients, you know, like they know us as individuals, they trust us, the trust factor as well. And I think we are more hungry than a network agency, you know. I'm actually launching a film right now and my network is not working and I'm into it because I want to launch it, right? So I think that's a big difference and I think clients also have started recognizing that more and more.
So, Paddy, while I'll continue with the earlier question, I'll also want to take on from what Sachin just mentioned is about the collapsing, not just of the agency, you know, the various acronyms that were there. It's also the collapsing of the hierarchies. We are seeing it happen a lot more rapidly now. Do you think that is also another a bit of fuel that is igniting the rise of independent agencies now?
I think Indian advertising started with independent agency 120 years back, next door in Girgaon, an agency called Dattaram, which started in 1905. So genetically, I think we are blessed to partner with clients and take independent calls. Then I think after that, Ma, Mudra, MCM, Frank Samois, Enterprise, Nexus, Ambience, Zen, you just name it. I think there was an era where these guys really created some wonderful brands. And at times where there was zero technology and it was all manual and whatnot. I think when the globalization happened, that's where a lot of network agencies came in, as Sachin mentioned. That's where they started putting a lot of muscle power through their sort of local partners. But again, the shift happened when I'm taking this pride by saying Taproot happened, Web Chutney happened, Scarecrow happened, Credbland Asia. And many other agencies again felt that there is a need to find our own voice because when you're working with a network agency, they have a culture of their own. Mm-hmm. You can't change that. After a point, you feel so much can be done, but I'm just getting suffocated in this network. I want to do something beyond. There is huge scope. Once you have spent 10, 12 years in the market, you know there is a potential to do something really brave and great and stuff like that. But having said that, I think network agencies are not bad. I think if you look at network agencies, there are many smaller agencies, independent agencies within that agency. It's not like those 500 people are working as a unit. There are small units like 20, 30 people. That's why you'll see in many network agencies, few groups are overpowering those other 15 groups. You need to have this culture because I think when you have a set of client and set of people, you need to bond so beautifully well that it should reflect in work. So I think unfortunate that last year our Cannes result is also a reflection of the unwanted shit that happens with merger and all. Sorry to use this, but I think a lot of people were stressed out. They couldn't focus on the work. They couldn't really push their clients. They were fighting those internal battles, which was unfortunate. But as I always believe that it cannot be a 1 year score. It's always an average of 3 years, especially in a creative business, especially when you're in a business of subjective. So I think let's take an average of 3 years, whether it's a creative person, whether it's a P&L of an independent agency or a P&L of a network or a Cannes score. So I think what we have created was amazing, knowing the year that we went through. So I think we should celebrate our work and not be really sulking about it. I'm sure it's a great learning because we'll talk about it, what went wrong and all. But yeah, I think, I hope I have answered the question.
You have, and you have actually, there is this very interesting work that Intercreative had also created and had submitted to Cannes, which was culturally very, very nuanced, and despite its swathing, cutting across 4 different cultures. Can we have that video? And then I will dive into the next question. Can we have the video, please? So, Santosh, Paddy actually, that's how you prefer it, right? So, you had submitted this particular casework. How confident were you that the jury would actually understand what went into the creation of this? Because ultimately, you have been part of the entire Cannes journey. You know that it's not just about the cultural nuance, it's also about the business impact. It's also about the storytelling and the narrative. How confident were you that it would win, and then how did you feel when it didn't?
Yeah, so at least we have not entered this piece. Maybe some passionate lover of this work must have entered at Cannes. So we have only entered the disintegrating billboard in outdoor. But coming back to this film, I think it's a great learning for us, because the brand was not known that they were into the business of open footwear and they are one of the top 5 players. We said it's extremely important to start a conversation that there is a brave brand called Chups that is into open footwear. So biodegradable was the starting point to start the conversation. But then came the budget, because we don't want to do a small film, a 30-second film or a low budget film. So this is where I think after a point we all problem solvers, so you have to get into solving the problem. So it was not fitting the budget. The 4 films were coming around 1 crore plus. So then I said, I have to solve this problem. I partnered with the photographer, dear friend Amol Jadhav, and said, let's co-direct this. This is how those 4 films were made. So the point I'm trying to make is, after a point, you have to find a solution. You can't rely on somebody else to find a solution. I think we are industry leaders, we are some of the top management people, and we have to find that direction. We have to create that path. So, so one part was this. Second, I was sure that culturally this won't cut ice with some of the juries, global juries. That's why, I mean, I've been on juries, I have judged Cannes thrice. So I knew this won't cut. That's the reason we didn't submit this set of films there. But the biodegradable billboard was very simple. It was sort of bringing the real aspect of what the product is. And luckily it rained and it collapsed. It actually was a product demo in an interesting way. So we thought it would do something, but as we all know that Cannes has gone more into execution, I would rather say, because juries are seeing those 2-minute film. How beautifully are you delivering your message in this 2 minutes, which should hold you and sort of tell the problem and the beautiful solution. It doesn't allow you to go or waver anywhere else. So this is now the key task that we need to solve for. Is it the 2-minute film the consumers are seeing? No. The consumer is seeing the billboard and he's moving from the car. He got the message. So the consumer has interacted with the creative for not more than 5 to 8 seconds. The jury has to be convinced in a way that holds them together to tell the brand message. It's a very different art. So I always, whenever I'm judging, I always think, let's get into the idea. rather than the case video taking over and hijacking you. So people are spending a lot of money in terms of execution to tell that beautiful story in 2 minutes. Problem, culture, story, execution, result. Please get into you have spent 10, 12, 15, 20 years in industry. Look at the problem and look at the idea and look at the solution rather than the so-called made video to please you, hijacking you. Absolutely bullshit. I don't agree to that. And I have been asking about this, and Cannes this year has gone too much into that. Maybe if India submits the same number of entries with a different jury, the result would be very different. Absolutely very different. So that's why I said, I don't think we should take this seriously, because you enter this, India has won some of these pieces in other award shows, where same number of global juries were heading it, but unfortunately the results were different.
So Dinesh, if I were to now redirect it to you, do you think that the composition of the jury really makes a difference? Because like Paddy mentioned, it sometimes, he knew that it wouldn't cut ice, but still he wanted to submit the billboard, and it was a beautiful one that you had. Very creative thinking. Still, and also independent agencies have to keep in mind the fact that they work with very limited budget, which again he touched upon. Sometimes a client might just turn around and say, no, we don't want to bankroll this. In such a situation, does the composition of the jury room really play a very pivotal role in the kind of work that is awarded or recognized?
Okay, I think that's a good one, Vinita. Maybe I'm not the right expert here to answer that, but the last 3 years that I've been tracking and the observations that have come out, one is, I think there's a change from creativity to impact. I think there's a shift here, because beyond the wow, it used to stop at the wow factor. Probably it's getting skewed towards the marketing brilliance, the real world evidence, the real world data. I think that's a shift where probably creativity is now being seen from a different lens. So I think these layers of whether it's an impact, whether it's the change and the purpose behind it is also getting equally important. So I think probably moving beyond creativity is something that's come up. So probably whether those are clear instructions given, but definitely some of the winners that we closely observed, there's a clear shift that I see moving in this direction.
But there's also, sorry Paddy, you want to say something?
No, I'll just add to what Dinesh has said. The jury formation does impact the work, the outcome. Unfortunately, independent agencies doesn't have a representative from the network. Correct. The bigger network have one person who can't vote for his own office work. But he's allowed to vote for his 8, 10, 12, 15 or 52 offices. It's unfortunate. But they get that window. Because when you enter 2,000 pieces of work from that network, you can go to Cannes and demand, I want 10, 15 or 15 juries. And those 15 juries can vote for the network work. But independent agency at the max will have 4 offices. And if they are lucky, they'll have one representative. Otherwise, it's a miss. So it really works in their favor, if you ask me.
And mostly they don't have a representative. Like we have one office,
no, 50
man
lucky,
team. Yeah,
lucky,
if you're
then,
very, very lucky,
yeah.
Actually, I want to just point one thing to what he was saying, and also, I think this time when we saw the jury for us, we realized that they were all experts in the category, right? And they were all looking at it from that lens. So he's very right that if there's another jury that's sitting there, the outcome is fundamentally different. And let's understand that's actually been one of my problems with our business. This is 100% subjective. There were 100 good ideas like Nike Just Do It or MasterCard Priceless that didn't see the light of day because 2 people at the top decided that this doesn't fit their worldview, right? Which is why I think the evolution of where this is going today needs to be fundamentally different. And it comes down to structures, governance, how teams are made, the kind of ways you run, your shops. We didn't design ourselves at all like an advertising legacy agency structure, right? We didn't know what it was. I didn't come from the agency world. I saw my father build an agency. He was behind Kitna Deti hai and Papa Ki Kara Petrol Khatam Hi Nahi Hunda, independent agency, Capital, they sold to a global network, Publicis. I grew up in that era, right? And I saw that. I mean, Nitin Berry, I think, knew you also. But But I grew up in that thing. I was brainstorming for Maruti Suzuki at the age of 13 when they won the Swift business. So, I mean, I grew up in that, but I realized that I don't want to build it like this, right? And then we built it fundamentally differently, right? We've got creators instead of copywriters on our team. It's governed differently, right? So I think that we need to think a little bit differently in the way we do things today.
You've just opened another very interesting aspect, which is creators as copywriters, because again, this time around again in Cannes, I'm sure, you know, if Paddy was seen there as well, the number of creators who were there were astounding. And it speaks a lot on how, what you mentioned is how creativity is communicated, understood, and absorbed. And how it needs to be now translated in the work that comes out. Right? Maybe earlier also somebody mentioned that maybe the era of the 1 minute or the 30-second ad is over. One needs to come up with something like that. It means putting on a different hat. But again, does that solve the business outcome? That's point number one. Two is, are brands really looking at only that kind of piece of work? Maybe they're looking for a mix of all of it. And ultimately, you guys have to decide what do you want to send to Cannes. So you're absolutely right. I think everything is getting fragmented, really. I mean, the Cannes that we saw maybe 10 years ago is much different now, right? The media is getting fragmented. The creators are getting fragmented. Some of the best commercials you see may not have been sent to Cannes, has been created by creators who have started their own agency, you know. So I think we operate as an independent in that era, in that time frame, right? And again, attention is getting fragmented. Like people are, all of us, including us, we have very little attention span. You know, we are going through doom scrolling and all that kind of thing. Gen Z, they were talking about it. They have a different worldview, right? As against what we had certainly about advertising, that it has to be, you know, quirky, you know, entertaining, stuff like that. It doesn't really help now anymore. And that's why probably you need a 2-minute video to explain that background, really. And it's just not just about a simple idea. And, you know, when I was working with network agencies, I used to think about it and I said, they don't understand this. Like that the landscape is changing and the thing that was expected was a 30-second commercial or something bigger that will get revenue and a celebrity and a film personality or something like that. But look at the creators today, like all of them who are, you know, they are at FIFA World Cup. They are at, you know, the Expo in Dubai and they are creating content from there and it's getting consumed. And, you know, so, and in that, you need to create something which is Cannes Lion worthy. So it is, Cannes, in my view, was already very layered, right? And now it is getting even more layered in terms of the content that is out there, in terms of, you know, getting the attention from your consumer and making that impact, you know? So I think that has shifted as well. And we need to look at that. In my view, it's a new world. And I think Cannes recognizes that. Like one of my friends, Joji, I was speaking to him. I couldn't go to Cannes this year. Obviously not. I had invested in my agency. And he said it felt more like a MarTech conference this year rather than an advertising creativity. And I think it's rightly so. Like more of the clients are getting involved. More of the consultancies are getting involved, you know, because the landscape has changed. And in that, it's lovely to see independents winning, you know, and world over. Like before you would have independents winning that and they would get bought over by network agencies immediately. We have examples like that. Right now, the network agencies don't have that wherewithal. I think there are only 1 or 2 who are into acquisitions. So I think we can really flourish in that sense. Network agencies keep saying that they want to go ahead and get into those areas that, you know, there are still white spaces that are there. So the acquisition route is open.
Yeah, no, I don't think the independents might want to be acquired. I think that's a different
question.
thing. I also want to point one thing to what you just said. Like today, traditionally what would happen was we would sit in a room and we would say, let's crack an insight. Let's come from a human insight. Then what's the idea, right? And then sometimes the insight was the idea and it was beautiful and it was amazing. And said, that's the idea, right? Today we are testing 600 insights with 600 reels organically, and the one that actually is user up and actually resonates with the audience then turns the MVP into a bigger idea. That turns into the big idea, turns into the film, turns into the billboard, turns into potentially a fundamentally different expression form because it's user up and it actually works. So I think that the feedback loop of how we design our systems to actually come to what wins should not be dictated by two people in a room that think that they can decode culture and they have the ultimate stamp on this is what works in culture, right? Because there are kids. I heard that, okay, there was a 6 million organic on the thing, which is amazing, right? Because it's validation and proof that that works. But I can tell you that every second day we're hitting 20 million, 30 million, 50 million on reels, on organic stuff, on stuff I would never greenlight in a room. I would look at this and say, what's the idea here? Why does this work, right? But the creator says, no, this works. This is the I believe this will work. And I think I've seen this micro subculture that is huge, that will blow up, that will become an expression for somebody. And I'm happy to be proved wrong every second day. So I think that we need to fundamentally redesign for the attention era of today. And it doesn't work for, today culture doesn't move at the speed of creative committees. It moves at the speed of creators and attention, right? And we need to fundamentally understand that.
Also because it become very personal. Like before we had one television screen for 4 people in a living room, and something odd will come up and the kids will start looking around because the parents are there. And now it's, each one has their own screen and each one has their own consumption, right? So you can, like he's saying, you can create a very specific reel which might be politically incorrect. Like, you know, big brands, they have this rule about no sex, no religion, no politics. Doesn't matter for some of the brands anymore, you know. Even brands are getting independent, by the way, right? So that's really the shift.
No, that's very interesting. And also, you know, because of the fact that the work that Dinesh, you had submitted and won for, is actually rooted in culture. And it was a story that took, a couple of years into making, right? The entire Infinite Study. A year. So that means that there are takers for the kind of snackable content that are there, which will drive the views that are there. And then there are takers for this kind of long, stories that take months to germinate. It's just, it makes the life of independent agencies that much more challenging because you have clients breathing down your neck. You also want to build a roster of good clients. You need to keep the P&L in the black after all. So if I were to ask you, this year has been a good one for independent agencies at Cannes. What is it that independent agencies can now do to push the envelope to come even stronger next year?
I think there is little bit of unfair, again, when it comes to Cannes judging. There is a jury bias when it comes to brands. Kit Kat, Heineken, Heinz, McDonald's, Nike, Dove, Coke. The jury, when they are judging, they already are in love with the brand because of the legacy. Absolutely unfair. Judge on the merit. If we submit things like Steadfast or Chups, they are not aware of the brand. If that same Chups was Nike or Adidas, they would have been more interested. Oh, there is a shoe that has been done for the first time, which is biodegradable. Okay, I want to know more about it. So sometimes I think, most of the time, this jury bias thing happens. That's why I think in cultural countries like India, China, Brazil, Japan, at least Japan in last few years has made their mark. They are forcing people to see their work. Our brands are very local in nature, and especially independent agencies, they have local brands. Unfortunately, all the big brands are with network guys, which are very recognized by the jury. So there is an additional task on us to bring out our stories, whether it's in 2 minutes or otherwise, to make sure that they interact with us. So we'll keep trying. I think Times of India did really well a couple of years back. Fevicol did it back. So I think constantly you have to keep doing that. We have these brands which are loyal to us, so we'll keep pushing the envelope and we'll make sure that someday they become global brands.
So keep trying is definitely going to be a motto, I'm sure about that. But other than that, if I were to ask each of you independently to give that one suggestion that will really mean how can independent agencies ensure that they entrench themselves very strongly, whether it's Cannes, whether it's any of the other global landscape, award shows that are there, what would it be? And I will start with you, Dinesh, and then we'll move ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I think critically, like Paddy also mentioned earlier, I think the nimbleness, the swift at which independent agencies can adapt, the way they can challenge the status quo, the jailbreak from the systems and processes. I think we are living in a VUCA world, right? So I think the pace of changes is amazing. I think the world's getting flatter, and more so, I think it's the era of unlearning. I think we can't go with a conditioned mind today. So with the pace of change that has come so fast, I think independent agencies have an edge, I feel, is in adapting, in unlearning, in challenging, and sort of bringing that passion deep-rooted into the culture to the table, and working so very closely with those relationships that have been built over the years. And there's a change at the client level as well, which is where we need to sort of make a strong pitch that we, you and me as partners could really take this to the next level. I think that's something that I would like to add.
I would say actually independent agencies are poised to do better in the future. And I'm not just saying this is random motivation, but I genuinely believe that it sort of reminds me of that story, right? Like of the elephant that's grown up in captivity with that little shoestring of a chain that's been caught and just made to believe that you are not allowed to break free, and you're just like, you're an elephant, you can do this, right? I think today independent agencies are designed to win because not of only agility, but new structures, new thinking. The kind of talent that we're attracting is not, say, just agency talent of sorts. It's fundamentally different. And I think that what you can do today with that audacity and without having the permission of somebody else to greenlight your idea and 7, say, layers of approval actually works for you, right, in many ways. And I do believe that today we're in a world where technology is democratized, okay? Capital might not be your biggest strength in terms of democratization, but technology has democratized it. Production has been democratized. Talent wants to work at places where they know that I can go and do the biggest ideas without having 7 layers to convince people of this great thing. Clients are already convinced and hungry to say, bring me stuff that my agencies aren't essentially bringing me, but you will bring me because you're bold to bring me and I'm done with the done thinking. The world is actually waiting to see what you can do. Maybe you're just that elephant stuck with that string of a thing and saying, hey, I can't do it. So we didn't think we would ever win a Cannes. When I applied, my Schengen visa expired. I said, I'm not going to go. And I get a call and I said, damn, why didn't we go? why wasn't I there? But I think that have the courage to do it, because I do think that the next decade will not only be about independence, it will be about people who have the audacity to take it forward and make it happen. So whether independent or network, whoever you are, whether within a network, I know you have to do a little more convincing, but if you can, don't be that elephant, basically.
So Padhi, Audacity and your motto aside, what else?
I think we are slowly forgetting we are in a business of creativity. If creativity can be your business strategy, we'll never fail. Suddenly we have shifted our focus from being a creative business strategy to a service orientation or oriented business. It's not needed. I think service should be the absolutely secondary thing when it comes to servicing our clients. We're in a business of creativity, and I genuinely feel we are experimenting very little. It's all about experimenting, because creative businesses are all about, be it a singer, dancer, musician, anything, any performance-led thing, I think has to be experimental. You have to keep experimenting. We have been adapting a lot. We have not been creating. So I think we have been given this great title called Creative and Creators. We should keep creating. I think that's the only mantra which will sort of help us succeed in no time. And that's when that happens, I think we'll be able to price our clients far better. Right now, they are pushing us. It should be the other way around. Absolutely.
Agreed on that. What about you?
Yeah, I think, Paddy is absolutely right there. But because you asked about the one suggestion on how to push independence into Cannes Lion, for me, this is our 6th month as an independent, So it's for me to find that one crazy client who is equally crazy about ideas as we are, because I can say that no idea happens without a brave client. A client who is ready to invest in you, who understands what it takes to create something which is shattering, which is against all, logic, And I think independents have that liberty because they can be crazy. You know, I mean, I tried to be crazy with the network agencies और ऊपर से मेरे को पड़ी थी कि ज़्यादा मत crazy बन. But independent, we can do that, right? So I think going forward, if you can find that one partner who really understands, and in real, not just patli gali work to send to Cannes, who really understands, you know, what creativity can do to their business and to the brand narration, I think we will, and if you can build 4, 5, 6, 7 clients like that, then there is no limit to it, really.
Well, then I think the best way I can sum this session up is that let's hope and pray that you have a lot more bravery coming through, whether it's with the kind of clients who are willing to back your ideas, whether it's in the kind of ideas that you keep coming, whether it's from the sources that it comes, you know, content creators or wherever, or whether it's also from the business outcomes and the insights and the culture. So here's to bravery, and let's keep hoping that it keeps coming. And thank you, all of you, for taking the time to speak to us. Thank you.
Pleasure, pleasure.
Thank you.